Hello, my name's Theron Phillips. I work for the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry, Office of Soil and Water Conservation. My job title is the Agricultural and Environmental Specialist Administrative Coordinator. So my career journey started in 1998, November of 1998 to be more specific, as the Coastal Revegetation Project Manager in Southeast Louisiana, where we go out and plant different grasses in coastal Louisiana that are selected through a process that the Plant Materials Center with USDA conducts, where they identify genetically superior plants from collections, and we in turn, once those are selected, they propagate them out, they're distributed to nurserymen. We in turn purchase those plants with the intent of reducing erosion in the marsh, on shorelines, interior marshes, beaches, to collect sand. Coastal revegetation program started back in the early 90s. It was a partnership, or is still a partnership, between NRCS. Back then it was Louisiana Department of Natural Resources, which is now Coastal Protection Restoration Authority, CPRA, and ourselves, the Office of Soil and Water Conservation. The goal is to reduce erosion in the coastal areas by establishing vegetation that is selected of a superior variety from collections made that are indigenous to the Louisiana coast. So my career journey did not start, or my intentions was not to be in conservation at all. My degree is in agricultural business. My intent was to graduate with a bachelor's degree and go out and be a great chemical sales or fertilizer sales rep for one of the nationwide companies. Unfortunately, I did not land one of those jobs. Well, fortunately, I did not land one of those jobs, but I did have a college buddy that did. And as we're talking today, I recall a phone conversation I had with one of my buddies from college that did land one of those chemical sales rep jobs. And it was probably about a year post-graduation. And he and I were both talking about our current careers and our jobs and what they entailed, and how different they were from what we really thought they were, and really kind of what each of us did, because I had, at that time, had aspired to be a sales rep. And it made me realize that conservation is really, it's not me. It's not just this job. I'm just a small piece of this larger puzzle on trying to conserve our natural resources. So it gave me a sense of pride that I was doing something that a buddy of mine that was in a field that I at the time aspired to be in was giving me accolades because I was doing something good. And that has since turned into even more now in my current role. Not only am I working in the coastal regions, but in this administrative position has me throughout the entire state, dealing with all 44 conservation districts. And so I've been fortunate enough to work with people that aren't on the job because they have to be. So I feel like every day that I'm at work that I have to really focus and strive to do better each day, because I'm getting paid to do this as I'm working with these conservation districts that are consisted of people that are volunteering their time. In my career journey, like I said earlier, I was the Coastal Revegetation Project Manager in Southeast Louisiana. After Hurricane Katrina, I lived in the New Orleans area. We moved to North Louisiana, where I had gone to school and where my buddy that was selling chemicals resided. And it was funny that I had another one of those aha moments when I realized that I was working with the farmers in North Louisiana in our 319 program. The same farmers that I was working with were the same guys that he was calling on selling a product, except I was educating those farmers on the conservation need and how to reduce erosion on their farms. At the end of the day, God had a better plan for me than to be a sales rep.
Alexandria Medine. I'm the district technician at Lafourche Terrebonne Soil and Water Conservation District in Thibodaux, Louisiana. And primarily I help with the re-veg program in southeast Louisiana. So we plant native vegetation all along the coast to help combat erosion and provide additional wildlife habitat. So when I started college, I initially went into pre-veterinary medicine for exotic animals. And as I started taking my ecology classes and everything, I got more interested in the research and wildlife and conservation and everything. So I ended up switching to conservation biology, which is kind of unexpected. I did expect from when I was very young to be a veterinarian, so it was interesting that I found that. And I ended up out of school just a few years. And never thought I would end up working on the coast. I grew up on the coast, and so I was like, I want to see something different, I'll have a job, on land, and ended up with a coastal job anyway. But it's great because I get to help these areas that I've grown up in my whole life and see them from different perspectives, I guess, as a biologist. And we meet so many people around here that this is their home as well, and we're helping them protect it and conserve the land that we live on, but also for the wildlife and all the protection benefits that wetlands offer. So if I had some advice for my younger self in undergrad, I would probably say to keep an open mind. I think I went into it thinking, oh, this is going to be my career, this is what I want to do, several different times because it obviously changed. But you end up in career paths that you didn't think you would, but it works out for the best. And I would also just say to get involved as much as you can with volunteering, helping graduate students, anything you can do to be more well-rounded, and just build your resume, get more skills. It makes you really valuable as an employee, and also just general life skills. I went to LSU for my undergrad, and then I moved to Lake Charles at McNeese State University for my master's. And so it kind of, moving across the southern part of the state helped me see different, meet different people and see different things. And so I think it's really helped me in my career.
My name is Jeremy Rodriguez. I work for the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry within the Office of Soil and Water Conservation, and I am the re-veg program, the project manager. And we go out and we plant marsh grasses to help reduce shoreline erosion. Shoreline erosion mainly caused by wave and wind energies. So waves can be produced by storms, or wind actually picks up the waves and causes them to be larger. That wave energy hits along the shoreline, loosens the soil, and then it erodes away. It can be caused by boats or by major storms and things like that. So the reason we want to reduce the shoreline erosion along the coast is it's valuable wildlife habitat. So fisheries, crab, shrimp, even recreational fishing. So if you want to go out and catch speckled trout and reds and stuff like that, it's all dependent on this marsh. So also hurricane protection. So everyone in any of the major cities rely on these marshes south of the cities for hurricane protection. So for every, I believe it's every 2 miles, something like that, you reduce, of healthy marsh, you reduce storm surge by a foot. So if we can protect the ecosystem south of these cities and things like that, that's going to reduce hurricane damage inland. So I actually started out right out of high school. I didn't go to college. I went straight into the workforce. I actually worked at an auto body shop for 10 years. 6 of those were full time, and then 4 was when I was actually decided to go back to college. A good friend of mine who was he was going for neurosurgery at LSU. Really good friend of mine. I hung out with him a lot, and he got me really interested in biology. I got actually aquariums, saltwater aquariums, are what I got interested in first, and I wanted to be a marine biologist. So I decided I would go to school and pursue that. And some portion of the way through school, I fell in love with the coast, because I've lived here my whole life. And so I wound up here. So I went to school at Southeastern Louisiana University. I graduated with a degree in biology with a concentration in ecology. And so I actually started working in Baton Rouge for Louisiana Department of Ag and Forestry. I was assisting Joey Breaux with Conservation District capacity building. So I would go out and help the districts with whatever they needed to get the jobs done, get conservation on the ground, that sort of thing. And the position opened up in the coastal world, and it was actually within the same office. So I took advantage of that, and I moved down because I love being out on the water. And so now we spend our days out planting marsh grasses, scheduling volunteer groups, doing interviews like these, and talking to people, doing outreach, things like that, and it's pretty great. When the Mississippi River was leveed, all of that natural sediment that had when the river would flood and it would feed this area and nourish it has been cut off, right? So during the rainy season, the wet season, Mississippi would historically flood its banks, and all of that silt, sand, sediment, all that good stuff would come out way past the banks, flood, and then as the waters receded, that would build new land. It would just add more soil and deposits over time. And so since it's been leveed, that's no longer possible, so it's not being fed anymore. So with natural subsidence is a part of just how deltas work. You have just sinkage of the land over time. So you have soil and water that's composed of all of, in this area. And so as the water is squished out of that, it's just kind of squished out of the soil over time of just having the weight of the land on it, it's going to subside naturally. And so we also have sea level rise. So you have the combination of natural subsidence and sea level rise. You have relative sea level rise. And so that's one of the things we're trying to combat here with these type of projects.
The terraces behind us were created by dredging material pulling from adjacent area, and this area is fairly shallow. It was previously interior marsh and has since opened up because of erosion and land loss. And so eventually the area that they borrowed the sediment from will silt in about 3 to 4 years. And as you can see, the Spartina has filled in very well. This is kind of the ideal situation. This project was done in July of 2020. And so this is what you would want it to look like. These plants were also planted on a 5-foot spacing, and so they have filled in very well within the year. species I was selected for this project was the vermilion strain of Spartina alterniflora. This species was found to be the best at handling salt in the water, and so that's why it was selected for this area to plant. If we were to do a project like this, as far as the vegetative component, which we do at times plant on existing terraces or recently created terraces, we usually use bare root plugs, and they would have 3 to 5 stems on them. They come from local nurseries, and they grow them mainly for projects like this. And so we plant them on a 5-foot spacing along the shoreline, and they can close in that spacing fairly quickly and ideally fill in the shoreline.
All right, so if I had to give my younger self a bit of advice, I would say do more volunteer work with like grad students and things like that once you find out what you're interested in. I did a little bit of it, but because I had to kind of pay my own way through school, I didn't have a lot of time after school, after college. I would go straight to work. So if you can, volunteer and get some of that grad student experience in if you can. So.